Hello everyone, I'm Deep Medhi, organizer of SKC Science and Technology webinar series. Today it is my pleasure to have Dr. Kalyan Handique. He's a very successful entrepreneur and he is currently the vice president of BioRed, which was the role he got after his last startup, Celsee, was acquired by the company. And before that, he started one called HandyLab, which is actually bears his last name, that he started in 2010. And that was also acquired after by 9 years, I believe, or something. 2001 is when he started, 9 years or so. He has completed PhD from University of Michigan, and his undergraduate degree is in chemical engineering from IIT Bombay, I guess. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Kalyan. So we like to hear what he has to say. And this is an informal fireside chat format session. So feel free to ask questions. You can type in question at the chat box. I can read it or I can ask it, or sometimes you may unmute yourself if you wish to ask directly a question to Kalyan.
Thank you, Deepda. The pleasure, being part of your wonderful seminar series. This is, I feel honored to be, a participant in it. Deepda, could you hand me over the control? I will share a few slides to go over the different companies.
See if it works now for you.
Okay. Yeah, it's showing. Hold on. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yes, if you can put it on the presentation mode.
Yeah, I'll do it now. So just to reiterate what Deepda mentioned, again, I grew up in Guwahati. Was Central School Khanapura Paldak. A lot of connections to people in this group. I'll just tell a story. When I was going through my schooling, my good friend, he's a doctor in Guwahati now, Gyanankar Medhi. He used to get some gifts from US, and one of them was a cassette tape with music recorded in a popular station in US, and we used to just listen to it over and over again. And only a month ago, when I connected to Deepda, we talked about it, and we realized he was the guy who was sending those, gifts over. So wonderful connection, and I still remember some of those memories. There are lots of other memories with people. I'm sure Namita Baido is here, or Ruma Baido from Ann Arbor. Wonderful memories in Ann Arbor, where I spent more than half of my life. And I would say it's a beautiful town in US that allowed me to really do what I wanted to do and give me the opportunity. I'll talk more about those. Okay, going back, I think Deepda covered my history. So I've came here to University of Michigan for my PhD, and then after that, I was able to take some of my research from my PhD and start HandyLab in 2000. The company got acquired in 2009. I stayed with the acquirer BD for about a year and a half, and then the next thing was Celsee. And then in another 10-year journey, and the next thing is BioRed. So I'll go through more details as through the talk, but I'd like to highlight, look at my life in terms of how I have been able to impact society through my endeavor in science and technology. So when I came to United States, like any other graduate student, you are always thinking, you get in my case, I got a fellowship for a PhD. So your first year is paid off, and you think, do I want to stay for a long 5-6 year journey of PhD, or should I just go out to the industry? And I went through those decisions to make in my first year. That was in 95, 96 timeframe. And what happened was my decision at the time was I will do a PhD if I find something that I really fall in love with. And that's what happened. There was a research going on, a very collaborative research between three different departments. I was in chemical engineering. The collaborators were in electrical engineering and also human genetics, biology. So the professor in biology, human genetics came to the engineering school and said, "Hey, we are trying to, decode the human genome. The current technologies are too slow. It's gonna take hundreds of years to, even decode one human's genome." And that's when, the group worked together to come up with unique technologies to speed up the whole process. Uh, Everybody has heard about the genome and how important it is. So that was a really what helped drive innovation in that group. I was one of the key students in the engineering that really drove some of the technology development. And what happened was, because we got a really good team of students, professors. There's a team of probably a dozen people, and we really set out a goal that we're gonna do something unique, and that's what we did. We had a breakthrough in 1998. We were we not only published our article, but it was one of the breakthroughs that year that really showcased some really unique innovation, where we are bringing in a lot of technologies to be able to do something that was nobody has done it before. So that I show a picture of a small silicon chip. It's the same technology used for making computer chips, but instead of moving electrons, you are moving small packets of fluid containing DNA and other reagents, and you are able to do something very quickly because the small scale involved. And I mean, this was definitely a breakthrough, and you can actually see the chip is in the Smithsonian right now. I don't know where, but I've heard it's there. But this really enabled us to
Kalyan, a quick question here. This is the very early days of doing any sort of a DNA type analysis, from what I understand. Is that right? So this is really bleeding edge at that point.
This is bleeding edge. I can tell you that no product has been made to this complexity even till now. Some of the components have been broken up by other companies, and then has led to the creation of the technologies called next-gen sequencing. That is the workhorse for sequencing now in the world. I mean, it's been going on for the last, I would say, next-gen sequencing has been popular in the last 8 to 10 years. And, I think the world has benefited from it. So this is still very unique, and nobody has been able to commercialize, because it is a bit hard to really commercialize such a complex things. And it's gonna come. It might take another 20, 30 years to get something similar endeavor. Okay, so this was great. This was in 1998. Then 99, I was busy trying to finish up my PhD. I had already spent about 4.5 years. So my decision at that point was, hey, it's great to get a technology created, have a science article, be referred by hundreds of other researchers. But I felt that, hey, what good it is to just make something if it is not available to the public, to customers, and they can really use it. So that was my whole mantra at the time, that hey, we need to push it to the next level. And so I actually was looking to get into startups in other places like California or Boston area that was doing very similar kind of technology development. But I felt I had offers, but I felt I missed the bus, because some of those companies have already created the base technology, and I was little maybe I should have been there like few years earlier. So just around that time, there was there was a VC fund in Ann Arbor. One of the associate, he saw the science article and he tracked the professors because it was right in his backyard. And then the professors pointed to me, talk to Handy. That was my nickname to my PhD. And they said, talk to him. If somebody will commercialize, it'll probably be him. So at that point, once they contacted me, I had to make a decision because it's you hear a lot of stories about VCs that hey, they're investors, they will just take what you have and then spit you out. And they are also turned vulture capital at the time. So it's kind of a very difficult situation. I had to make a decision what to do because it was a unique opportunity. So I really had to think through, do I want to go into this, other side? And I talked to my friends. There was one who had experience in a startup. He was just going into Harvard Business School. He was doing an auto portal startup in India, funded by Mahindra. And then he told me one thing. In a startup, uh, every day you will be learning something new. Even if the company fails, you will still be a lot more experienced than you've ever thought. And then I also,
Kalyan, let me interrupt a second and ask you a question here again. I mean, growing up, have you ever thought about starting a company? Was that ever in your mind, just to get a sense of?
No, never. I
Okay.
think it's a. I know I always like to be doing something impactful. That was mostly in an academic setting. I was good in school, in my high school, and I did well NPSC or whatever maths Olympiad. But I never considered myself that I would ever be in the business side of things. So that is all new learning. And I think what happened is it's just when the opportunity came, I had to learn quickly within a matter of days what it means to become an entrepreneur. I remember buying like 2-3 books, and then I also did in some of these books you will see a question, maybe 100 questions at the beginning. And as I went through it, I realized actually I ranked very high, that I could be a good entrepreneur. And that's, it was good validation to go through some of these.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I had to make a decision quickly. And then, Ann Arbor, I lived in Ann Arbor, very close to, I don't know if Namita Baido is here, Satenda. They lived, within a few miles. I chatted with them that, they're good encouragement from, anybody that thought, hey, it's a good idea, go for it, we'll support you. That's kind of, the vibe I got. And then, I also thought at that point I was, quite young, not married at the time. I had nobody else to support. So going from a student stipend to hopefully getting some money, and the experience was very, very, I saw no negative. I saw all positive.
Mm-hmm.
So once I made the decision, then it was very easy. We worked with the VC and then started working with the tech transfer, University of Michigan. And over a time period of maybe about 6-7 months, we got through a business plan. And then we basically was able to get some money from the investors, and they started working on the technology. So that was in 2000, but it was a very difficult journey to get to the finish line.
Right.
We thought we knew
the science article. What was the driver that you were able to convince the VCs that this is something worth exploring? Product order.
I think the VC was, I think, pre-sold because we had a science article that was a breakthrough. They thought that we're technologically we could create something unique. We already had IP. But in hindsight, that is not why any investors should put money. The investors put money if only there is a good business plan and a plan to get there. So we didn't have that. So we are lucky. And I think they got pre-sold with the technology and my passion. I think at that time I was able to take 5 minutes and say, okay, this is what you're gonna do. And I think sometimes they get sold by the passion demonstrated at the time. But I don't think that's the reason people should invest in anybody. You should have a solid business plan going from A to Z all the way to the finish line. So long story short,
sometimes it works out, Kalyan. So you were an example. So I mean, I know that's the quote unquote the standard formula for starting a company or doing a startup. But it works.
Yeah,
I
So, great.
have yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, please.
I I have a small question. So you have made some big life decisions like moving from academia to industry and all this. Like you need to have a little bit of like you need to think a lot about all these things. How do you manage to take such decisions?
So those are good. I actually enjoy those life fork decisions. Uh, you know, sometimes you want to get to a point where there is a fork in the path, and then if you go one side, it's kind of the same old, and if you take the other, it's going to elevate your trajectories to something really unique. Actually, I enjoy taking the decisions where you have to take a risk. That okay, I'm you know I like to say the phrase that hey, if you want to fly, you have to jump. At some point, you cannot say, "Oh, there's a cliff and I'm going to die." I think you have to make a conscious decision that you're doing it, and then you could fail. Yes, the failure is always there, but what happens is when you make yourself attuned to be acceptable to failure, you do more and more at every juncture, and often what it does is it keeps taking the trajectory that was never possible if you got stuck in that, hey, I should not have taken the risk. I think it is something inherent. You have to get used to, get comfortable
Right,
with
right.
risk.
Thank you. Right. Mm.
Okay, so where was I? Okay, HandyLab story. So we started in 2000, but we needed once we started figuring out the market to go after, what products to build, and then what are the other complementary technology we needed. We realized we had years and years of development still left. It took us actually 4 or 5 years to bring together all the technologies needed to build a product. It's very I mean, we were lucky to keep getting funding from VCs because we got some in, and at every juncture we were pushing the boundaries of technologies. And if you see the
Mhm.
Celsee, sorry, the HandyLab, when we till now, from 2000, we have 200 patents and applications, all created within the first 8 9 years. And that was the reason I think we kept getting funding, and eventually we got it right. We launched this product BD after acquiring, call it BD Max. This was the first system in the world where you can take clinical sample testing from a large reference lab to a hospital testing. So this can run 24 clinical samples at the same time. Let's say you have COVID, or you have a swab sample, you put in a tube, and then
Mhm.
you run for checking for COVID or flu A, flu B, all of those. So we actually, when we launched it, we had developed tests for H1N1 virus was pandemic in 2008. So this is the system that really help drive the testing in US hospitals of that flu A, flu B, whatever, H1N1 virus variant of the flu. So this system basically allowed testing to be done locally in the hospital. To be You put your samples, and then within 2 hours you get all the results. So this was um, pretty innovative at that time. And the good news is, yeah, this is now, last year when the COVID hit, and United States was scrambling to do testing. This was the first to do automate COVID testing in US by BD. It was even
Wow.
Trump in
Very
his
good. Mhm.
announcement also showcased this in April of last year. Again, I think very fortunate to have been involved with the journey, and I can see that this is the now system is there in everywhere in the world. Not so much in India, because India diagnostic testing is still at this a little much behind than where it is in US, EU, and in some of the other countries.
Kalyan, there's a question here. How is the BD system different from the traditional RT-PCR test?
So the traditional RT-PCR is just one component. All the other steps are done manually. So this will automate all the sample preparation and then the RT-PCR in the same machine. So you can run RT-PCR in this. So it will do everything. You just put the sample in. Everything is automated by a robot in this machine.
Okay, great.
Okay, so that was the story of HandyLab, and BD acquired it. I stayed with the acquisition for about a year and a half. BD wanted to move the R&D to Maryland, and then manufacturing was moving to Quebec City. So I stayed through the integration. Wanted to make sure that they don't mess up during the transfer of technology and whatnot. But I also helped launch the next generation platform, which is most in the current format with BD. So I stayed with them, but then I really wanted to go back to the fast-paced environment of a startup. Down company, things are much slower, and sometimes at that time I was eager to go back to the drawing board kind of thing. So that was around the time. Another story. So that was in 2010. I was working in BD. My wife, Priya Gogoi, she was working in another startup called Experience Therapeutics. So in one of my, she has a degree in molecular biology, and she was working for Experience Therapeutics, which is another startup at that time, launched by the very well-known entrepreneur Roger Newton. He's actually a discoverer of Lipitor that's popular in the whole world. So she was working for him, but she like any startup goes through ups and downs. She actually the position got cancelled, and she basically got the pink slip. I was outside the country, and she was very upset. I got fired. What the world has come. Is just gonna falling apart. So after the HandyLab acquisition, I think we're financially okay. So I told her, you have no, you shouldn't be worried. You can do something of your own. And she literally took that statement, and next day rounded up 2 of our friends and started Celsee. Said, okay, we'll do something.
Very interesting. Okay.
So that was in 2010, and when I came back from my trip, and I was like, okay, she's already formed a company, and I said, okay, let me help them. I was gonna be a mentor for them as they were going through idea screening, seeing where they can make an impact with their biology degree, and then they again went through lots of ups and downs, trying to figure out where to build a business around in biology. So it took them about a year to get it right. And I purposefully let them get bounced around in the community. A lot of people, they're all from smaller schools, no experience, and when they went out for help, they would be ridiculed by maybe 10 people, but they will always find one people who will encourage them and help them. So that's what happened. They went to the like I say, you have to go Master Bazaar, go and letara to get the good fish. So that's what they did. They went and really figured out, and then after a year, my wife always wanted me to join the company and help them. I said, you have to show that you have something good. So in about 9 months, they figured out what they want to do, which is in cancer diagnostics. And they won a local business plan competition, the best new business idea, get some money, got access to an incubator, and also won another part of my wife won the elevator pitch competition. And that point, I thought this is, I should take a risk and see if I can move this further along. And then Priya, she was also smart enough. While she was dealing with me, she was trying to get her old boss, Roger Newton, and then got him on board as an advisor. So and then that was in August of 2011, and now I have to make a decision. Okay, we cannot have both husband and wife, putting money and then not seeing an end game. So I gave ourselves 6 months that if we cannot raise money around the business plan, I think I'll dissolve the company. So
Kalyan, one question, this might be a good time to ask a question that came up on the chat here. I mean, you talk about this money situation there, right? So going back to when you first started, did you do any part-time job in the early stage of your startup to, so that's a risk you took.
It's a risk. And then, And that time when you may have to bootstrap could be very long. So I think it's a real difficult decision to take when you have a lot of dependence on you. Like if I had a family, I may not have been able to do that.
That's correct. That makes sense. I don't know if you know my friend Abhijit Barua in Guwahati. He did chemical engineering from IIT Delhi, and then did his master's from Syracuse University. He went back. He started some air products. That's the oxygen gas supply right now. We're in Assam, right? So he spent 6 months not doing anything actually, but just seeing where he's going to do the set it up and why he selected Sibsagar to put his initial factory and everything. So by the way, actually oxygen, his oxygen thing, what he's doing is setting it up now in like medical colleges in Guwahati, direct supply and everything. He actually did one of the webinars a few months back. That's also available and recorded from my website, from the website we have. So just for your information and for everybody's information, I wanted to mention that. Go ahead.
So, that was, 2011. I had to make a decision, how long to support, this, the Celsee, by paying from my own pocket, and both husband and wife in the company, and so we thought 6 months we have to see whether we can raise external money. Otherwise, it's probably have to dissolve it. So what happened, because there was so much pressure on us to figure out something. So we at that year in 2011, we competed for business plan competition in Michigan. It's called Accelerate Michigan. And the great news is, if you are the grand prize winner, you get $500,000. It's the world's largest prize competition. And very interestingly, my wife and her co-founders, two other co-founders, were volunteers in the first ever event the year before. So they knew what kind of, how you have to groom yourself, what kind of questions judges ask. So next time we applied, we went through the different hoops, and we made it to the semifinals. And we really practiced well. If you haven't met my wife Priya, she can be a real ambitious taskmaster. She made me practice the presentation so many times that when I went up on stage as the top 10 finalists, it's like a Shark Tank event. You go to different levels, and the final event is you present to the audience of like 300, 400 people. There's judges sitting, and you get 10 minutes to go through your pitch. So when I was up there, I had the burden of the company on my shoulder. I knew this is it or we are dead. And when we presented, it came out so strong. We were like head and shoulders above the competition. And we won. We came with that $500,000. And then, it was just, and after that, there was no looking back. We were able to gather, with that validation, we gather more investors. And then, that was the fundraising, but, it took us a while to, again, build the technologies. In this case, Celsee built products for, cancer cell detection. When you have cancer, you start with the primary tumor or blood, cancer cell blood. Through the blood, it goes to other parts of the body. It creates metastasis. So we created a device to capture those cancer cells, so that you don't have to do biopsy, and then you can do other tests on it. And then along the way, that was 2011. We got acquired last year, 2020. We went through lots of ups and downs, and then we had to figure out how to take the whole product through FDA trials. And then along the way, we had to pivot the business to a research market. And then because the earlier product, even though it was very useful, raising money for clinical trials, you didn't have tens of millions of dollars. We had trouble raising that money because there were a lot more barriers, and the investors were not ready for that kind of patience. So we pivoted that company towards a research market in a very fast growing area. and that was in 2016. And then when we announced our product, we really started getting traction with other companies, including Bio-Rad, that was trying to get into the space. So
question here, what do you mean by a research market in this particular case here?
Life science area, there are a lot of research in US, Europe, and other countries. They are researching, for example, they may have been researching on how your body reacts to cancer. Why in certain humans you have more virulence versus some you're not. So you have to really investigate what's happening with the different cells within the blood, how they are different. So that's the research part. Once you know established marker, then it could become a screening tool or a diagnostic. So that comes downstream.
Right. So the reason I brought it up, I know exactly what you are going to talk about, but the reason I brought it up is that a lot of people do not realize that when there's for a particular product, the market need not be necessarily a business market.
Yeah.
There are market in different ways, as long as you can identify what is the right set of market for which that you are actually building the product. Identifying that is obviously a challenge. And but that's an important market, especially in the biomedical area. There are a lot of research funding goes on into those parts. A lot of researchers need that. So I'm glad to hear that you and Priya identified the need for that in market that to productize what you have developed.
Yeah. So again, I think you have to constantly be talking to your customers to see what they need. And then make sure that what products you are building, they're going to buy. If it is not providing any value to them, you won't, it won't be useful. So I think getting doing a good customer discovery, making sure constantly asking them, hey, if I build this, would you buy? And then how much will you pay? Those are very, very important exercises we have to do. In addition to building your product and other things, there are lots of work involved in that. So that's the story. What happened? We went to this market, and then we also were when you want to scale up your product and then build manufacturing, and then we build a commercial organization to sell it, marketing, salespeople. You need a lot of money. And then we were trying to raise that money in 2019. And concurrently, we're also talking to these companies that may be interested in putting money. And Bio-Rad happened to be interested in that space, commercial space. And then they just put a term sheet to acquire the company. And it was little. I would say we were lucky to have gone through the process, because when we were in the midst of negotiations with them, we also were running out of money, and the COVID pandemic hit. So, but in spite of that, they decided to stay on track to acquire the company. So we got bought out on April 1st last year. The same day the US stock market crashed to the rock bottom. So I would say, if they wouldn't have acquired us, Celsee would have been dead by now, because there's no way to raise money with so much chaos in the marketplace. So long story short.
Yeah, that's always difficult to know about when you are doing. I mean, I know a couple of my former students. They're almost like at the bottom of the whatever they were getting, and they luckily got picked at the last minute, right?
Yeah.
And they sold their companies. And in fact, funny thing is that YouTube that we know about exactly happened to YouTube. I remember when YouTube first came out, and they were almost running out of money just to put the servers for all the storage and whatnot. And obviously, a few people picked it up.
Yeah, it happens. As I like to say,
you have to get a little lucky sometimes, in that sense.
Yeah, you have to get lucky. And I can think of in both my companies, whether Celsee or HandyLab, there are probably 5-6 near-death experiences, and at each time we got lucky. And I say, why us? Why were you lucky? I think it all. I like to quote this Paula Coelho's quote that if you are doing something good, if you have a good intentions, the world conspires to make you successful. And I think luck comes, only when you are, have good intentions, and then you have the passion of the whole team, behind it. And I have been believer of that, and it has happened to us multiple times, and I continue to prophesy that.
Very good. Yeah.
So before this is my family. You can see Priya. I have two kids. Both very, both my kids, have were born when Celsee was starting. So, they face the brunt of us putting so much, energy into a startup. In fact, when Nora was born in my first year of Celsee, her first word was RBC, WBC, CPC. He and I were talking so much about, blood testing, this and that. It was a little scary also. Anyway, I'm going to stop sharing so we can.
Yep. Great. Very good. This is a very good summary. I mean, of course, one thing I need to do is bring Priya also as a speaker down the road. That'll be great to hear from her. And also for, as a female entrepreneur, that's very uncommon, especially among Assamese society in the technology area.
She's very,
so I will get her.
I wanted to say something here, Kalyan and Deep. First of all, of course, we're very.
Hello, you got disconnected.
Oh, am I breaking up? Oh,
yeah. Oh. Can you repeat?
I was going to say that I'm very, first of all, proud of both Kalyan and Priya, and wanted to say that Priya also writes very well. I've read her blogs about this kind of topics. So I'm just wanted to mention that too. And Kalyan, keep it up. Really proud of you.
Great. Very good. Excellent.
Thank you.
Kalyan, there is a couple of other questions. One question that came in earlier is that how would you describe your PhD advisor's role in supporting your transition from academics to industry?
I would say it was a difficult experience for him, as well as you have to look back in what was the situation in University of Michigan in the late 90s. We were startups were not not something there were hardly any startups at that point. There was no successful tech transfer in University of Michigan. So in general, forget about the East and the West Coast. Other universities have the mentality that any commercialization is actually bad activity. That's what their mentality
There was a time like that. I remember that. Yep.
Yeah. So in fact, when I was talking to tech transfer, I had 3 professors. My advisor said, you do whatever the tech transfer wants to do. I don't want to get involved. And he said, oh, I have family and kids. I don't want to get involved in this risk. Another professor, he said, don't touch the technology. I'll sue you. And the third professor said, no way, we're not doing you anything. So that was the first time in the history of University of Michigan, a student who still hasn't got his PhD was asking for technology. And the university actually went with HandyLab. So it was a real difficult decision for university. But in hindsight, University of Michigan, if you see now, every year they are creating probably 10 startups in biotech. HandyLab has been the story that changed University of Michigan, where it's going. I think, I would say it was very hard, difficult for the professors and for me. And, I think at the end, I think it was the right decision. And, I think everybody wins at the end, but it was hard.
Yeah, like this was a kind of a completely different thing. Nowadays, I mean, it's much more common in the universities to be exploring that part. When you announced that you are going to be thinking about this, business side of thing, does your advisor continue to support you with research assistantship, or was
no, that was once I was out there, I had no.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. But by that time you finished your PhD. Now, let me ask you a different question, Kalyan, which is that you have done this for 20 years now. I'm very, very impressive. No question about it. What you have done. I have followed you for a long time. And the question is that if you have to do something differently, what would you do differently from the, in hindsight? We always talk about hindsight, and that could be a lesson.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change anything. Wouldn't change anything about it, because everything of value takes time to build. And personally, from very early on, I want to be involved in making an impact to society. And if I can use my depth of science and technology knowledge and when I say impact to society, it naturally gravitates towards healthcare.
Right.
It's gonna healthcare, commercialization, those takes time,
Absolutely.
It is very capital intensive. Yeah. So I would not change anything. It's just, I'm happy for the journey where I have been so far, and I wouldn't change anything about it.
Okay.
So, it's, for example, and in the first startup, it was the one I had to take a jump, and it was easy. In the second, Priya took the jump for me, for the family.
Absolutely.
I mean, she did slog it out for a couple of years. I wouldn't have taken the jump because I would have been worried about my family and other things. So it as you grow older and more established, harder for you to take the jump. So you will always need mentees that they are going to do the jump for you, and you come in at the right
point. Right. So let's step back a little bit more here. That first, what made you go into chemical engineering? What is there something you liked it because you like chemistry and the mathematics, or what was it that that sort of has a connection to where you end up being, obviously. So
yeah. So I went to IIT Bombay. It was not right out of KV Khanapara. First of all, when I applied for engineering, I didn't get into IIT the first year. I went to REC Surat. Okay. I was there. I did very well there, but I felt like I think I could do better. So I reapplied. I prepared and reapplied for IIT exam, and I got in. My rank was such that I got initially I got into aerospace engineering in IIT, because that's based on your rank you can get chemical engineering, computer science, were not available for my rank. So when I went to IIT Bombay, I did well in my first semester, so I had an opportunity to change. Okay. And then I was in aerospace, but I based on the feedback I got, most aerospace engineers end up working in software. And I kind of knew that I wanted to stay in hardcore, engineering sciences. And chemical engineering, there were a couple of seniors in my, dorm, they were all chemical. And then I learned a little bit more. And it felt like there were a lot of opportunities available for chemical engineers, because they are involved in basic process scale up. They have to learn about the fundamental science like heat transfer, fluid transfer, mass transfer. They can do process scale up. And in fact, if I look in hindsight, all the key technology scale ups in this world, whether it's computer chip industry, the Intel founder, a lot of the scale ups are done by chemical engineers, because they understand the basic science and they know how to scale up. So I think I was pulled by that opportunity to do something. Really, I didn't know when I was in school what chemical engineers were. So, but as I learned more, I felt it was a good science, engineering discipline to get into.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So how things end up playing, right? You go to aerospace engineering and whatnot, but it definitely was a very good experience.
Yeah, so it's funny, you know, I'll just finish up one. In engineering, in school, I used to like to do electronics. We used to make all this, you know, radio kits and this and that. So when I came to my PhD, I felt I can go back to electronics because, you know, that was the project. So, you know, it comes full circle.
Yeah, I have another friend. I don't know if you know Chiranjit Deka. He lives in North Carolina. He also is he's a physics background, a PhD in physics, but got into the biomed type of product line, basically, you know. So, and it's kind of very interesting what is happening in that space. One question that just came up is that, do you think going to a tier 1 university give edge in entrepreneurship? What is your take on it? I'll rephrase the question in a slightly different way. You went to University of Michigan, which is the top, really, really top-ranked university.
Yeah.
But even for that university, the entrepreneurship concept was not there. In fact, you know, so
it was not there.
Not there. So that in that
I think
it is answer that question. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps because you have access to cutting-edge research. So the opportunity that you will be creating something unique is higher, but I don't think it is necessary. I think depending on your personality, you can still be at a lower tier university and do entrepreneurship. I think it all depends on motivation. For example, my wife and her colleagues, they went to Priya went to Michigan now for her MBA, but prior to that she was in a small school. But I think that fueled them because, hey, there's nothing stopping me from doing what I want if I want to, right? It doesn't matter if you're from a big university or a small university.
I think part of it is about entrepreneurship is that it's a little bit of a inborn capable, thing that may not show up at early stage, but it sometimes pops in your mind that, okay. And then sometimes it's a matter of timing. As you said that you are not responsible for anybody yet when you started doing it, right? So you could take a little bit of a risk at that point, that I can take this risk, We always get afraid about taking risk. Many people I have talked to, at their older age they would say that, I wish I have taken a little bit more risk, right? There's everything is, I look at everything as a risk, take about COVID or whatever it is, right? But everything has a calculated risk associated with it. There was a very interesting novel I read called Calculated Risk many, many years ago. It was a fascinating book I read, actually. Do you have any other parting comments or thoughts before we end today's session?
No, I'm very happy to be involved with this community. Again, Deepda, thank you. I didn't know about this seminar series, but what you're doing is much needed. Only through stories you hear, you can get other people to, you just want to see the thought in somebody's brain, and then a little bit of nudging here and there can, change the trajectory of a young person's career or what they can do, and then, how they can impact the society. And again, I think I strongly believe that if you want to do something good for this world, the world will help you, and it's always happened.
Do you have any other comments about people from joining from Assam for this session? Do you have any kind of comments, or I don't like to use the word advice. I
think there's another question.
Advice, that what sort of things would benefit them to think about, not necessarily entrepreneurship, but thinking out in an open way about problems. Because if you start thinking about that, that takes you to the next stage. Because we get stuck, especially in our current educational system, especially in India, is that we really think that, oh, I got to pass this exam, do better to get to this thing, rather than think it aloud. So if you could comment on that, any kind of
I think
thoughts you have.
I think society as a whole should be respectful of failures. Then do not put a stigma to the you didn't
That's a very good
pass
point.
the exam and that's why. No, it's people
failure is not actually a failure.
Yeah.
I always say with everybody.
So I think that would be important. The best thing that people see has happened because there has been a lot of failures along the way. I think society should have tolerance for failures, encourage people to try something new, even if the outcome looks good. Ahmad, there was a mentality, if he's not a doctor, engineer, he
Right.
That is I value a worker, আগতে যে যোগালী বিলাকে কাম কৰে, if they are doing real hard work, I value that much more than someone who ene bohi ase because he didn't get through this exam, entrance exam. Ene bohi ase. That is the worst thing. I mean, people should really value the importance of hard work and not just sitting and saying hobo ji hobo. That ji hobo is going down the drain mentality.
I mean, before I open up for others to ask a question, I will make a quick comment. There is an Asamis restaurateur here in Kansas City. He grew up in Koliabar. He kind of went to Austria, landed up. He started his business about 3 years, restaurant 3 years ago, because he came to work for one of the corporate cafeteria in Kansas City as a chef, right? And then COVID happened. This restaurant is flourishing right now and doing very well. I really enjoy talking to him. He and I talk about business and whatnot whenever I go and order from him, right? So anyway, I'm going to open it up. Manoj, you want to ask a question, I think? And
first of all, congratulations, sir, for both of your company getting acquired by such big companies in our field. Like, I'm also from the medical device field. So I do have one small question about startup. So when you do the startup, at what point it comes to your mind that, okay, from now on, I will go for merger and acquisition? Or sometime do you think that I will take it on my shoulder and I will make it big? I will not go for merger and acquisition.
Yeah, those questions are dictated by how much of money you have put in yourself and how much money you have got from outside investors. Okay. When you bring in money from outside investors, the clock starts ticking. They have put in money with the hope of making a return, some multiple of the money they have put in. So the further it becomes away from when they put in, the harder it becomes for you to make a decision. That exit point becomes important. So if it has lot of years gone past by, and if there are opportunity that presents that, hey, okay, with that merger, those investors will make some multiple, I think it becomes easier. You get forced into taking those decisions. So it depends on the situation, basically.
Okay, so since you already have started, so I think many more to come for you in near future, like many more companies. So do you have something in your mind that in future you will harness it on your own, like you will not go for merger and acquisition, rather than you would like to stick to that?
It depends on what area I get into. In the biotech investment area, it takes a lot of capital infusion. You're talking about 20s to maybe hundreds of millions of external infusion. That becomes very hard to sustain it by yourself and having control. You could do it, but it will take you maybe 2 times longer. Depends on what if first of all, the decisions to, if you think that it is money you're after, then I don't think you'll probably you may not make an impact. So my life goal is to make an impact to society. So often the money part, it may not go hand in hand. So I'm happy with that, because I'm for example, 10 years after HandyLab, when I look at, I think the product that I built is an important part of the story in for the society. That is priceless. The feeling that we are all coming here, we'll stay for X number of years and we'll go away. What have we done to you know, a movie, there was a movie, you know, tu nanga aaya tha, nanga hi jayega, kya ghanta leka jayega. I mean, that's the thing, you know.
I do have one more question. Like being in the research field and also being a scientist, how do you handle the marketing side? Because I have been a part of a startup during my start of my career. There I see that the management, the founders, they always try very hard or to make it to the marketing side. R&D is fine. R&D, because being a scientist, it's in your blood that you will make it. But also it is important that how, as you said, that how do you produce it to the world?
Yeah.
So how do you take?
You know, when you are early on, you definitely need someone with a lot of experience in that, you know, marketing, commercial insight. So you need partners. But through my experience, I enjoyed going whenever the first product being installed. I enjoyed being actually the service guy who's installing it, because I get a chance to talk to the customer. I think those interactions are very valuable as a R&D technical person, because then I'll get feedback. What I'm doing, is it worth it? You know, I think the more you can get yourself experience in things that you're not good at, it's better, because then you become better at what you're good at.
Okay. And after the margin acquisition, what happens to the other employees? Like, is it already planned out?
So with current Bio-Rad is actually growing the team in Ann Arbor. I think since acquisition, we've almost, if not double, close to double the size. So, and then I moved to another division, so I'm building another team. Almost, you know, I'm helping Bio-Rad move into clinical diagnostics, build some, you know, unique platforms that can make an impact, you know, in 5 to 10 years. So it depends on the acquisition. So Bio-Rad has been very good about, you know, maintaining the core team and growing it. In my last company acquisition, that was not the case. BD wanted to, you know, move the, you know, technology to different place. So they had offered jobs to the employees here. Of the 70 people, only 2 joined. All the others stayed back. And then the good side of that is, after BD, you know, left town, there has been 5 or 6 startups based on employees who were from HandyLab. So it actually helped mushroom more startups in here. So I think, you know, it's once people go through a good, healthy startup experience, either they stay with the company and do better in there, or they will find other, you know, opportunities to make an impact.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question.
Okay, Rakim, go ahead.
Yes, this sometime back you talk about technology transfer, right? So recently I am looking into this news that there is some patent issues with coronavirus vaccine sharing with India. US is, you know, there is a problem. As a vice president of a biotech firm, how much can you give some insight into that? Because this is a pandemic time, and, you know, country like US should definitely come ahead and share vaccines and all this stuff.
Yeah, I think, yeah, for that is, you know, for on humanitarian grounds, I think, you know, companies should be more humanistic and allow things to happen, because otherwise, you know, it will, if things are bad in India, it eventually will hit US too. I think, you know, they should figure out a way to make it work. You know, I think it will probably happen. It just, you know, probably takes effort from both sides, you know, to see each other's viewpoint.
Okay. Thank you. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
I was muted myself. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kalyan, for your insightful comments and your thoughts on what you have, you know, what you have looked into, how you have looked into, and I'm hoping this will be beneficial to, obviously, the attendees of today's webinar. But as I always do, I will just make the recording available through the website on YouTube. so that the other people can benefit from, what you have learned, to help them, guide them, to inspire them for what they want to do next. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Handique, for your